Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. I didn't move to the edge of nowhere for peace. I came to disappear. 4 acres, 1 garage, no neighbors. But when a silent war broke out over my land, it wasn't thugs at the gate. It was something worse, an HOA with secrets, power, and a plan, and I just became their problem. I didn't move out to the edge of nowhere to get peace and quiet. I moved out to get left the hell alone. That was the real goal. After over a decade designing systems for the Department of Defense and another 4 in dusty, unpronounceable places overseas, I figured I earned the right to tinker with cars, drink beer with other people who didn't talk too much, and never hear the words compliance again unless it involved a torque wrench. The place I bought was perfect. 4 acres of dry Texas soil, a solid 1-story house with a wraparound porch, and best of all, a steel garage the size of a goddamn airplane hangar. The previous owner used it for farming equipment. I had other plans. I just started converting it into a full-blown auto workshop. Lifts, air tools, reinforced flooring, the works. Every inch of the land was legally zoned, private, and, here's the kicker, not part of any HOA. That was non-negotiable. I made the realtor put it in writing 3 times. 2 weeks after moving in, I was standing by the mailbox, coffee in hand, when I found it. A cheap postcard, no return address. Just one line printed in all caps. Your garage violates community architectural standards. Please make corrections. No signature, no phone number. I laughed out loud. What community? I muttered, flicking it into the trash can like it was a fast food napkin. The nearest HOA was 2 streets over, and I wasn't within spitting distance of their jurisdiction. That same afternoon, my buddy Jet Harper showed up. Jet lived 2 houses down, retired Marine like me, built like a vending machine full of grudges, and had a knack for noticing things before they became problems. He brought cold beer and news. Saw 2 guys hanging around your garage last night, he said as he cracked open a bottle. Reflective vests, no badges. One had a tablet, other one was taking pictures. City inspectors? I asked. Jet raised an eyebrow. Driving a black Suburban with no plates. I put the bottle down. That night, I swapped the garage locks with commercial-grade deadbolts and installed a wireless motion sensor near the entry points. The next morning, I ordered cameras. Nothing fancy, just enough to make someone think twice. I wasn't paranoid. I just knew what curiosity looked like when it came with boots and bad intentions. 3 days later, I saw them myself. Black SUV. Slow roll past the property, front windows tinted to hell. I was standing out by the gate with Jet, who grinned and waved. The SUV didn't stop, just kept crawling along like it was mapping the damn terrain. That evening, I filed a general incident report online. Not a police call, just a record. A few days after that, I got a letter. This one was in an envelope, hand-delivered, no postage. Cream-colored stationery, like it thought it was better than me. Letterhead at the top. Greystone Meadows Architectural Committee. Below it, the signature, Karen Milford, President. It demanded I cease unapproved construction and dismantle the non-compliant structure. Her phrasing, not mine. Apparently the garage, which had existed for 20 damn years, was unsightly and incompatible with community standards. I double-checked the letter. No legal references, no parcel ID. Just the HOA logo, some vague threats about fines and action, and her signature scrawled like a bloody flourish at the bottom. That was the first time I said her name out loud. Karen, I muttered. Of course it is. I pulled out the deed to my property, my original zoning documentation, and the exclusion map showing, in black and white, that my land was not and had never been part of Greystone Meadows. I scanned them, attached them to a reply letter, and emailed it to the address listed in the letterhead. I kept it simple. This property is not subject to the jurisdiction of the Greystone Meadows HOA. Any further attempt to interfere will be treated as harassment. Do not contact me again. I hit send, poured a double shot of bourbon, and went back to work in the garage. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be the end of it. Jet agreed. These people, he said, they don't understand the word no. The motion alarm went off at 2:37 in the morning. At first, I thought it was the smoke detector. Then I realized it was coming from the little receiver on my nightstand, the one linked to the garage sensors. The alert was loud enough to snap me straight out of sleep. Adrenaline hit before my feet touched the floor. Years of deployment condition a man to move before the brain has time to process anything. I grabbed the shotgun from the closet, racked around out of muscle memory, and slipped out the back door. The night air was cold enough to sting, and the yard lights stayed off. I didn't want to spook whoever was out there. The garage loomed in the dark, a massive, corrugated silhouette. Something metallic clattered against the gravel. I pressed my back against the garage wall and inched toward the side door. The padlock I'd installed only a week ago hung half-snapped, twisted like someone had attacked it with bolt cutters. When I nudged the door with my boot, it creaked open just an inch. Whoever had been here was either still inside or had bolted the moment the alarm triggered. "Not tonight," I whispered. I pushed the door open, shotgun up. Inside, silence. A faint smell of oil and warm metal. The place was empty. No cars, no shadows, no breath. Just my own pulse in my ears and the red blink of the motion sensor in the corner. I stepped back outside and swept the area with the flashlight. Fresh tire tracks curved through the gravel toward the road. 3 sets of footprints in the dust by the door. They looked hurried. Someone had run. I called the sheriff's office, not 911, just the non-emergency line. The deputy showed up 40 minutes later. A young guy with the kind of mustache that made you want to pat him on the shoulder. He inspected the lock, took a few photos, and finally shrugged. Well, since they didn't technically enter the building, I stared at him. They broke the lock. Right. But Texas law says that to classify it as breaking and entering, they have to actually enter and you need proof of intent. He said it with such bureaucratic confidence, I almost admired him. They broke the lock. I repeated slowly. He offered me a pamphlet on neighborhood watch programs. I resisted the urge to shove it down his throat. The next morning, I checked the mailbox. Another envelope. Same cream paper. Same HOA logo. But this time, it was hand-signed in huge, dramatic cursive, like a high school cheer captain announcing prom rules. "Mr. Sloan, your unauthorized commercial facility must be removed. Failure to comply will result in escalating fines and legal action." I took a deep breath and read it again. The phrase commercial facility stood out. They were trying to establish language to justify jurisdiction. Jet showed up as I stood there, letter in hand. His first comment, "You gonna frame that? It's got real dictator energy." I didn't laugh. Instead, I pulled out my folder of property documents and started laying them on the kitchen island. Deed, tax parcel, zoning exemption map. Every page clearly stating one thing. This land was not under any HOA. I scanned the new letter and forwarded it, with every supporting document, to the email on the letterhead. "Stop contacting me. Your organization has no jurisdiction over my land. Any further communication will be treated as harassment." When I hit send, Jet raised his beer like a toast. "Think that'll do it?" "No," I said. "But I like having a paper trail for when people do stupid shit." I spent the afternoon upgrading the perimeter, installed 2 more cameras, one aimed directly at the garage door, and ran a backup power line to the motion sensors. I added a floodlight that could be triggered remotely from my phone. Paranoia is just experience with better wiring. Later that evening, I got a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. They left a voicemail anyway, a clipped, controlled woman's voice. "Mr. Sloan, this is Karen Milford, president of Greystone Meadows HOA. Your refusal to respond cooperatively is disappointing. We will proceed accordingly." Proceed accordingly. Nobody using those words has ever meant anything good. Jet listened to the voicemail twice. That woman sounds like a human spreadsheet. I didn't respond. I was looking out of the window, at the garage, thinking about the broken lock. Whoever had been here, they weren't just snooping. They were probing, testing reaction time, checking weaknesses. I felt it in my gut. This wasn't going to stop. Not with emails, not with polite replies, and definitely not with me minding my business. People like Karen don't go away when they're told no. They escalate, and I had just given her a reason. The motion sensor lit up again, only this time it didn't buzz. It screamed. It was just after 1 in the morning. My phone lit up red with the alert, and the floodlight cam sent me a snapshot. 2 figures, one already at the side door of the garage, the other standing lookout. They wore reflective vests. HOA logos printed clean across the back. I didn't think. I just moved. I was out the back door in less than 30 seconds, shotgun in hand, boots unlaced. My heart pounded like it used to back in Kandahar, that familiar cold burn in the ribs right before contact. I cut across the gravel with a flashlight in my left hand and the shotgun in my right. The side door was already cracked open. Someone was inside my goddamn garage. I stepped in silently and heard a shuffle near the workbench. A figure leaned over my tool chest, like he was looking for something specific. He didn't even flinch when I stepped in. That changed fast. "Hands where I can see 'em," I barked. He froze. "Drop whatever the hell you're holding and back away. Now." He raised his hands, turned slowly, early 40s, balding, vest with the Greystone HOA logo. No badge, no ID, just nerve. Outside, tires crunched gravel. My backup had arrived. Jet's Jeep pulled into the drive, headlights off but high beams ready. 2 doors slammed, then another set. I saw the familiar shapes of Jason and Marcus stepping out. Both had been over earlier for beers. I guess they weren't in the mood to call it a night yet. The lookout outside started to bolt, but Jet moved fast, tackled him hard into the ground like they were back in Fallujah. By the time I escorted the man from the garage into the floodlights, Marcus already had the other one zip-tied with a length of cabling I kept in my truck. The guy on the ground was yelling, "You can't do this! I'm on official business." "Is that so?" Jason asked. "Show us your warrant." "I'm a certified inspector. We have a right to—" "You have a right to shut the hell up," I cut in. "This is private property." He kept ranting about architectural oversight and community integrity like he was reading out of a policy manual, but none of it made a damn bit of legal sense. Marcus found his wallet and ID. His name was Trent Milford, and I didn't miss the surname. Son of the Queen Bee herself. The other one wouldn't talk at all. Jet had him on his knees, arms behind his back, calm as ever. Ex-infantry guys don't waste words. I called the sheriff's line again. This time I made it real clear. 2 intruders. 1 inside my garage. 1 tried to run. I've got them both restrained. Cameras recorded everything. Send someone with cuffs. The deputy showed up 15 minutes later. Different guy this time. Older, slower, more serious. He stepped out of his cruiser, hand on his belt, surveying the scene like it was a training drill that got out of hand. "Evening, gentlemen," he said. "Let's all keep things civil." I showed him the broken lock, the video feed, and the open side door. The guy from inside was sweating now. The one on the ground had gone silent. "All right," the deputy muttered. "Looks like a case of unlawful entry. I'll need to take statements." "They're not going anywhere," I said, jerking my thumb at the cable ties. He sighed. "I'm gonna have to cut those. Can't have civilians restraining suspects." "They weren't suspects when I tied them," I said. "They were criminals." Still, I backed off and let him do his job. He Mirandized both, escorted them into the back seat of the cruiser, and promised to log the footage and evidence. Before leaving, he leaned in and said, "You'll want to file a formal complaint first thing tomorrow. Press charges if you can." "Oh, I will," I said. And then some. The next morning, I called Tom, my old buddy from JAG Corps, now a civilian attorney with a particular hatred for overreaching bureaucracy. I sent him everything. The footage, the statements, the photos, the letter from Karen. He didn't even hesitate. "Yeah," he said, "this is breaking and entering. You've got an open-shut case." By noon, he'd filed the initial complaint. At 3 p.m., I got a call from someone at the sheriff's office. "The 2 suspects have been released pending investigation," she said. "They made bail." "Bail?" I repeated. "For trespassing? Technically, it's being treated as unlawful inspection under civic authority. What the hell is that supposed to mean? They're claiming jurisdiction under HOA policy." I almost laughed. Almost. That night, I rewatched the video, pausing at the moment Trent Milford stepped into my garage. The look on his face wasn't that of a vandal or thief. He was looking for something, not casing the place, not snooping, searching. And that raised a new question. What the hell did the HOA think I was hiding? Tom showed up 2 days later in a navy blue suit that made him look more like a pissed-off preacher than a lawyer. He didn't waste time with small talk. Dropped his briefcase on my kitchen island, popped it open, and started laying out documents like we were prepping for war, which, in a way, we were. "These 2, he said, pointing to printed photos of the men we'd caught, are listed in the HOA's internal directory as volunteer compliance officers. No legal certification, no municipal authority, no contracts with the county. Just Karen Milford's blessing." He handed me another sheet. "And this is your tax parcel confirmation. Confirms what we already know. Your land sits entirely outside HOA boundaries. Always has. Never annexed, never rezoned." "So how the hell are they claiming jurisdiction?" "They're trying to manufacture it," Tom said flatly. "That's the only way it makes sense." I poured him a coffee while Marcus pulled up the footage again. especially the frame where Trent Milford leaned over my workbench like he was on a mission. We zoomed in, cleaned it up, and spotted something strange. He wasn't just looking. He was planting something. A small, unmarked black case slid behind my tool chest. My stomach dropped. I hadn't noticed it during the chaos, but now it was clear as daylight. Trent slipped it into the shadows like he was hiding drugs or explosives. Marcus and I sprinted to the garage, flashlight in hand. We moved the chest and found the case exactly where we saw it on the footage, tucked behind a stack of spare rotors. It was heavy, clicked shut tight. We opened it slowly. Inside were half a dozen circuit boards, some military in appearance, others stripped bare. A few had RFID tags, others had Russian labeling. I didn't recognize any of them, and I used to design systems for these kinds of things. Marcus exhaled sharply. Jesus, this is supposed to look like contraband. I nodded. They were setting me up. We bagged the case and took photos, being careful not to touch anything without gloves. Then we drove straight to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Colton Hale himself met us at the front desk. Broad-shouldered, maybe 60, gray mustache, eyes like cold steel. He gave off that old-school Texan lawman energy, the kind who still believed in property rights, even if he thought you were an asshole. He listened, silent, as we explained everything. The planted evidence, the footage, the false claim of authority. We showed him the case. When we finished, he ran a hand down his face and said, "Let me guess, they called it an inspection?" "Without a warrant," I said. "Without cause. On property they don't control." He gave a low whistle. "I'll log this as evidence," he said. "And I'll start pulling strings to find out where this crap came from." "Do you believe us?" I asked. Hale looked me dead in the eye. "I don't like people who lie. I don't like people who break locks. And I damn sure don't like people who bring foreign-tagged electronics onto a veteran's property and act like they've got some God-given right to trespass." He paused. "But the HOA has connections. Don't expect this to go smoothly." He wasn't kidding. The next day, my mailbox held a new envelope, thicker than the others. Legal stationery. A letter from Greystone Meadows HOA and their legal team accusing me of running an unauthorized defense contracting operation and requesting that I cease all prohibited industrial activity or face civil and criminal penalties. I laughed. It was so desperate, it was almost theatrical. Almost. Tom didn't find it funny. "They're building a narrative," he said, trying to get ahead of the facts. "This isn't just a dispute anymore, it's a campaign." And they weren't just working the legal angles. That week, I noticed a black SUV parked down the road for hours at a time. Sometimes it moved, sometimes it came back. Cameras went up on a few neighbors' roofs, all pointing toward my land. Marcus took that personally. He flew a drone over the entire area, mapped every signal, and ran a sweep. Found 3 new Wi-Fi pings with scrambled MAC addresses and a weird pulsing pattern, like they were scanning for something. "I think they're trying to build a signal case," he said. "Claim you're running illicit comms gear." "This is psychotic," I muttered. "No," Jet chimed in, "this is Karen Milford thinking she's a Cold War general." But it wasn't just surveillance. One of my regular supply orders, a shipment of hydraulic hoses and custom brake assemblies, went missing in transit. Then my supplier told me they got a compliance inquiry from someone claiming to be a state contractor performing neighborhood enforcement. Jet, Jason, and Marcus were livid. "They're trying to choke your operation," Jason said. "Starve you out." That was the moment I realized Karen and her cronies didn't just want me gone. They wanted to discredit me, ruin my name, make it look like I was some rogue actor, so when I fought back, no one would believe a word I said. So I changed tactics. No more playing defense. It was time to plan something of my own, something they wouldn't see coming. The best ambushes are the ones your enemy walks into smiling. We called it Operation Irony. It started with a burner LLC. Marcus filed the paperwork himself under a fake name we'd used back in Afghanistan for mission cover, Dover Bay Holdings. We gave it a perfectly sterile logo, bought a fake commercial real estate website template, and listed my property under a page titled Strategic Rural Redevelopment Opportunity. The description: secluded commercially zoned land ideal for premium residential expansion or custom villa cluster, motivated seller, private seller, quiet transition. Within 48 hours, we had 2 emails and 1 voicemail from interested parties. One of them was a broker who casually mentioned she sometimes worked with the Greystone board on property transitions. Bingo. Tom made the call pretending to be a junior partner from Dover Bay, played it smooth, salesy, curious. Asked who her client was. The woman dodged. That confirmed it. Next step, bait the queen. We crafted a follow-up email addressed to community stakeholders, hinting at an interested party in Greystone willing to acquire the lot as is, contingent on jurisdictional clarity and architectural compatibility. Within 12 hours, Karen. Milford responded directly. Her tone was polite, but with that sharpened HOA edge. She said she was personally willing to facilitate jurisdictional alignment and expedited architectural approval, provided the property's current activities ceased and the garage was removed. Tom nearly spit his coffee reading that. She's admitting she wants to wipe your existence off the map, in writing. But we needed more. We needed her voice. Marcus set up a recorded Zoom call, posing as the lead on the acquisition team. Tom and I listened in from the other room as Karen joined from what looked like a home office with one too many fake plants and HOA plaques. She smiled like a woman who already thought she'd won. She didn't know her mic was capturing everything. Karen explained how Dover Bay would inherit a clean title with no messy legal opposition, and that we've already taken certain steps to mitigate local resistance, including efforts to disqualify non-compliant structures and discourage problematic tenants. I nearly broke the damn speaker when I heard that. Then she said it, the thing that changed the game. We were able to neutralize a similar situation 2 years ago through quiet annexation. Signatures were replicated, and the county accepted them with no pushback. Tom froze. She just admitted to felony fraud, he whispered. She kept going, claimed she had a contact in the zoning office. Claimed the architectural enforcement team had already surveyed the structure for compliance. That would be Trent and his friend, the guys we caught inside my garage. Karen didn't stop there. She bragged that she'd neutralized a potential threat by labeling me as a rogue contractor, and that, with enough pressure, we expect he'll fold or sell within the quarter. When the call ended, we sat in stunned silence. Tom finally spoke. We just caught her monologuing like a Bond villain. We packaged the call, the emails, and the footage from the garage into a secure file. Tom handed it over to Sheriff Hale that same day. Colton watched the video twice. He didn't say much, just closed the laptop, locked it in a drawer, and said, "We're going to do this clean. I'll escalate it to the county prosecutor. But you need to understand, people like her don't go down without taking someone with them." I nodded. She's already tried. He rubbed his temples. Yeah, but now she's going to start throwing weight around. And she did. The very next week, my business license application, which I'd filed preemptively for the garage workshop, was denied. Reason? Pending compliance review. I got a letter from the county saying my garage was under administrative inspection. No inspectors ever showed. My delivery accounts were locked again. This time by the Department of Environmental Quality, based on anonymous complaints. Tom filed for discovery. The complaints came from a Mrs. K. Milford, alleging I was dumping hazardous chemicals into the soil. It was a full court press. She was trying to bury me before the truth ever saw daylight. And then, the real hit. Our first court hearing. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA and Karen personally, trespassing, attempted fraud, harassment, and conspiracy. Everything was airtight. But we drew Judge Rumsfeld, a leathery old bastard known for being HOA friendly. From the beginning, it felt off. Our key evidence was delayed in acceptance. The defense attorneys, now joined by a slick corporate guy flown in from Austin, argued that our surveillance footage was obtained illegally, that the Zoom call was entrapment. The judge didn't toss the case, but he gutted it. Video, inadmissible. Email chain, insufficient authentication. My garage, potentially non-compliant under open interpretation of surrounding zoning. He even suggested I might have provoked the incursion by failing to establish clear perimeter notices. Karen sat across the courtroom with a smug smile, her lawyer whispering in her ear like he was feeding a snake. We lost that round. The case was dismissed without prejudice, meaning we could refile, but the damage was done. Publicly, it looked like a win for her. Back at my place, we sat in silence, jet-paced. Marcus clenched his jaw. Tom looked like he was going to throw up. I said nothing. I just walked outside, lit a cigarette, and stared at the garage. She thought she won, but all she did was make me patient. For the first time in years, I felt like I was back in a war zone. The uniforms were different. No camo, no helmets, but the tactics were the same. Suppress, distract, discredit. Karen Milford wasn't trying to beat me in court. She was trying to exhaust me into surrender. It was psychological warfare dressed in country club couture, and after that courtroom stunt, she thought I was bleeding out. What she didn't realize is that people like me don't tap out. We reload. Tom didn't say much for the first few days after the hearing. He went quiet, which was always a bad sign. That was his lawyer brain cooking. Then, late one night, he called and said 5 words. It's time to go federal. He'd spoken to a contact at the state attorney's office, someone with an interest in fraudulent HOA practices. When they heard the Zoom call, even redacted, they perked up. But we needed more. Karen's fingerprints were on the poison. Now we needed to prove she served it. That's when Sheriff Hale stepped out of the shadows and back into the fight. He showed up at my door with a manila folder, unannounced, like something out of a Western. He looked tired, like he'd been wrestling with a decision for a while. I've seen what she's done to others, he said, setting the folder on my table. Good people, old families. She didn't just push them out. She ruined them. Tax audits, permit delays, fines until they begged to sell. I opened the folder. Inside were complaint letters, most never formally filed, emails between HOA board members, some of them less careful with their words, notes from a clerk in the zoning office, anonymous, but damning. She's got a friend on the inside, Hale said. Always has, but that's changing. People are scared. They're starting to talk. It was the break we needed. We compiled everything. Tom drafted a new suit, this time in district court. Wider scope, more charges. We were going after Karen, Trent Milford, and the HOA as a legal entity. Fraud, trespassing, conspiracy to commit property seizure, tampering with evidence. Then we did something they didn't expect. We went to the press. Marcus had a contact in a local watchdog blog, a guy who lived to piss off the rich and comfortable. We gave him the videos, the emails, and best of all, the Zoom recording. He blurred faces, masked names, and posted the full transcript with a headline, How One HOA Tried to Erase a Homeowner, and Almost Got Away with It. Within 24 hours, it hit 3 local news sites. By the end of the week, it was on regional news. Karen tried to spin it, issued a statement calling it deeply misleading and selectively edited, but then someone, no idea who, leaked the full unedited video. And just like that, the tide shifted. Jet, Jason, and Marcus ramped up security around my place. Not because we were scared, because we expected desperation. We rotated watch at night, drones in the air. Marcus installed license plate scanners along the private road. Then on a rainy Tuesday morning, a gray sedan pulled into my drive. The woman who stepped out wore a black windbreaker and no makeup. She introduced herself as Alicia Renteria, Assistant U.S. District Attorney. She didn't shake hands. I'm here to evaluate your materials, she said. If what you have is as strong as the report says, this goes federal. We sat at the kitchen table. Tom walked her through everything. The evidence chain, the timeline, the witness statements, the fake inclusion into HOA boundaries using forged documents. She listened, took notes, asked sharp, technical questions, the kind that tell you someone's already building a case. When we finished, she closed the file and said, I'll be back. She wasn't bluffing. Within a week, subpoenas were flying. Karen tried to rally her board, but half of them had already lawyered up. One resigned outright. Another flipped and gave the feds emails confirming the scheme to pressure resistant lots into jurisdiction. It wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time, I saw her mask crack. Her responses to the media became erratic. Her HOA newsletter, yes, she had one, started quoting scripture. Jet said that's always a bad sign. Still, the damage had been done. Karen had survived the first court because she knew how to rig the game. Now she was playing against people who actually read the rulebook and carried badges. As for me, I went back to work in the garage. Every day, hammering, welding, rebuilding. Not because I had to, but because they tried to take it from me. And I'll be damned if I let them win. They say justice is slow. That's a lie. Justice just takes the long way around because it's busy picking up bruises, paperwork, and bullet holes along the way. When our case hit federal court, the tone shifted fast. Gone were the smug HOA lawyers. and the local judge with a country club handicap. Now we were dealing with polished suits, real rules, and a federal magistrate who'd seen enough racketeering cases to smell one from a mile away. The trial was set for a Thursday morning, held in the regional courthouse downtown. Thick columns, metal detectors, and that sterile government air that smells like air conditioning and quiet dread. Karen showed up in a pearl-white blazer and the fakest humility I'd ever seen. Her son Trent walked behind her like a deflated football mascot. No HOA logos this time, just fear. We had Alicia Renteria on our side now, the assistant U.S. attorney who didn't smile unless someone perjured themselves. Tom stood beside her, looking like a wolf who'd been starving for this moment. We led with the Zoom call. The judge allowed it without hesitation. The jury watched as Karen confidently laid out how she'd facilitated jurisdictional realignment and replicated signatures. It played like a documentary on arrogance. You could hear a pin drop in the courtroom. Next came the video from my garage, Trent planting the black case behind the tool bench. The jury didn't need legal degrees to get the implication. We followed that with forensic analysis confirming the parts inside were deliberately tagged with foreign identifiers, a stage setup designed to imply illegal activity. Then the real hammer dropped. The former HOA board member, now a cooperating witness, middle-aged, nervous, but clearly shaken. She testified under oath that Karen had directed strategic harassment campaigns against at least 5 property owners over the past 3 years. Falsified complaints, bogus citations, coordinated social pressure. Her voice trembled when she said, "We were told to make it unbearable until they either sold or caved." Karen's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Then came the forged documents, the attempted annexation of my parcel using my signature, replicated from a warranty deed I'd never signed. A forensic handwriting expert explained how the signature had been lifted and manipulated. Karen's defense crumbled fast. They tried to claim it was an administrative error. The jury didn't buy it. The judge didn't buy it. Hell, even Karen didn't look like she believed it. At one point during cross-examination, Tom asked her, "If Mr. Sloan's land was never part of your HOA, what gave you the right to enter his garage without consent?" Karen didn't answer. She just stared at the table. Silence. Cold and heavy. The kind of silence that tells you someone finally knows they're done. Alicia made her closing argument simple. This isn't about rules. It's about power. And what happens when someone thinks they can bend the law to suit their personal ambitions? The jury took less than 3 hours. Guilty. Karen Milford was convicted on multiple federal charges: conspiracy to commit fraud, unlawful surveillance, trespassing, evidence tampering, and identity falsification. Trent got a lesser charge, accessory to a felony, but still faced sentencing. The court awarded me $750,000 in damages for harassment and defamation, and another $1.2 million for attempted seizure of private property and reputational harm. But that wasn't even the real win. The judge issued a permanent restraining order against Karen and the HOA. Not just no contact, no jurisdiction, no correspondence, no attempts at interaction with me or my land. Then came the aftershocks. Within days, the Greystone HOA board imploded. 4 members resigned. The HOA's legal representation dropped them. A local news station ran a full expose. Subpoenas started flying. And then, like icing on a burning cake, the IRS opened an audit. Funny how the mighty fall when someone finally pulls the rug. Karen was led out of the courtroom in cuffs. She kept her chin high, but the air of control was gone. Trent didn't look at anyone. Back at the house, we celebrated like only veterans do. Quiet drinks, dumb jokes, and a long look at the garage that started it all. Jet raised a glass. "To quiet neighbors." "To private land," Marcus added. "To never underestimating a mechanic with friends in all the right places," said Jason. I didn't toast. I just smiled. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could exhale. 2 months later, I finally took down the motion sensors. Not because I stopped being cautious, but because I didn't need to watch my back every minute anymore. The road in front of my house, once patrolled by anonymous black SUVs and nosy HOA foot soldiers, was quiet now. Real quiet. Just the occasional pickup rolling by, or Jet doing his slow laps in the Jeep, sipping coffee and pretending he wasn't retired. Greystone Meadows HOA was officially dissolved. The remaining board members held a closed-door vote to disband after federal scrutiny and a hemorrhaging membership list. Turns out, when your president gets hauled off in cuffs for orchestrating a criminal enterprise, the neighborhood barbecue committee kind of loses credibility. Karen Milford was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Not white-collar time either. She'll be wearing orange for a while, probably figuring out how to run a commissary baking committee by now. Her son Trent, 5 years probation and a lifetime ban from serving on any housing board, which honestly might have hurt him more than prison would have. As for my land, still mine, still private, now legally bulletproof. Tom helped me file a secondary protection order, reinforced zoning exclusions, immunity from retroactive annexation, and a civil clause that fines any HOA $10,000 per violation if they so much as send me a flyer. I framed that one. Right next to the new sign I put up on the gate. Private property do not enter, especially if you're with an HOA. The workshop's been running smooth ever since. We expanded, brought in a few veterans from a neighboring county, guys who needed something to do, something to build with their hands. Jet teaches welding, Marcus runs the comms and diagnostics, and Jason oversees fabrication. We call it the garage. No frills, no politics, just torque, steel, and people who don't quit. Funny thing is, the publicity turned out to be good for business. People started coming by. Not tourists, not gawkers, but locals, farmers, truckers, small business owners. Folks tired of being told how to mow their grass or what color mailbox they were allowed to have. We turned the back shed into a classroom. Veterans only. Twice a month, I give a talk on zoning laws, private property rights, and how to protect your land from vultures in polos. People listen. Some even bring their deeds. Sheriff Hale stops by sometimes, still gruff, still calm. But now he brings homemade jerky and sits out back with us while we weld and swear. He never talks about Karen, doesn't have to. We all know how close it got. One signature, one missed camera, one bad judge. And this whole story could have ended differently, but it didn't. And now, every time I step into that garage, fire up the lift and smell hot oil, I remember why I came out here in the first place. Not for peace, not for quiet, but for freedom. And I earned every goddamn inch of it.